Kia ora whānau, huge episode coming up, round 9 review with the boys, Etheram, Dills, and our main man Willie, and myself. Let's get into it. Kia ora whānau, welcome back into the show, and yes boys, Etheram, Dills, Willie, what a weekend of rugby league. Before we kick off, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's tuning into our show and supporting us and subscribing to our YouTube channels and all our social medias. Keep following us. We'll keep bringing you all the latest stuff on rugby league. So appreciate you, whānau. Love your fellas' work.
Yeah, we got a comment to start off the show from one of those said amazing fans, Fifita Wolfgram. So I'll just read this out to you boys to see what you think. It's a bit of on our Harold Matthews chat from last week. So Fifita says, only 5% to 8% of all Harold Mats and SG Ball players will go on to make the NRL. So please make sure these boys have a plan B. Please, brothers. The reality is most won't make it. E.g. for every critter coming through in the Penrith comp, his age, there were 20 other critters that could not make it. I saw their comp. And yeah, that's pretty much then there's just some nice words, but
yeah. Thanks for the energy this morning, brother. It's absolutely outstanding. I love it. Yes, I love your energy, bro. But he has a really important fact. I think that's really true what he's saying. And the thing is, for us now, and I guess for myself, being in those positions early, and very grateful and lucky that I went on to play a long career, but it is important for kids that are at school to continue to do their schoolwork so that they do have something to fall back into. And like you said, 5 to 8% isn't many. That's nearly 1 in 50 when it comes to, if you're sitting in a classroom, you're looking around, you're going, hope only one of us are going to make it. So really important that the kids get some study behind them and have a career outside of rugby league. Again, we're getting a lot of kids coming into the grades at 17 years old, straight out of school. And if you haven't done well at school and you just think that rugby league is going to be for you, then there could be other issues down the line, injuries, anything can happen in the game of rugby league. So important that they get an education, Will.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a really strong message that I'm grateful the game sends out and does a lot to help the young fellas coming through, and we do stress the message, and the welfare officers at each club do a really good job in facilitating opportunities for the young players to carry on learning. And everybody's different. Everybody is different in how they learn and what they want to fall back to. Some are good in the books, some are better manually. So trying to find out what these young people are passionate about away from footy is important for them to go and chase and be prepared for the eventuality of finishing. We all finish at some stage. And some players who do make it are better prepared financially than others. So how they do with their money is another education point, but having a vocation and something behind you to fall back on. And from my experience, I was very lucky I studied later on, but I wish I had done it when I was younger. And my message to the young fellas is do all your studies, do all your education when you're younger, when you can, because once you've done it and you're qualified in something, no one can ever take that away from you. You've got that forever. So don't leave it till later. Bank it, keep it in your pocket. You've got it for whenever your time comes to finish. But yeah, it's a really important one because not everyone can make it, and Tavita's message is spot on.
Yeah, same thing for me, Willie. I went back to uni and did some work while I was in the game. I mostly was one of those kids that thought, I'm going to make NRL. Again, grateful, lucky. But at the same time, during my journey, I'm thinking, man, if I was to finish tomorrow, what was I going to do? And it was important for me to make sure that I had some backing behind me. So went and did some stuff around my uni work, got all those stuff there, have a little bit of a diploma of applied management sitting there, which is cool. But at the same time, that's important. I think the NRL do a really good job now. Like you said, our welfare officers that are at the clubs also stress that, life after football, they give all these opportunities. There is pathways there for them as well. Sometimes the players can't use the excuse of not having enough time to do these things, because there's plenty of times in the NRL and in our pathways to be able to take on some opportunities and become something that you can or want to do. If you're passionate about something, it's important that you go after and chase it, and the clubs do help them, which is great. So any kids that's listening, make sure you talk to your welfare officers or do really well at school so that you've got some support behind you for when you finish rugby league or if you don't make rugby league.
And parents too. Parents, encourage your boys and girls, to go and do something.
Yeah.
A lot of people want their kids to put all their eggs in one basket. Well, the message we're sending is from us, from the clubs, but parents got to drive that as well, especially for the younger ones.
Sometimes dreams aren't everything. You got to have the structure as well. Shout out to Fifita for.
I love that.
Just by
I like it, bro. You're giving your little opinion. I like it.
Yeah. Thanks to Vita for the bringing up
Keep
that good
coming.
point. Moving on to the Women's State of Origin first ever 3-game series kicks off on May 16th at Suncorp, and the first squad has been announced for Queensland. Did you guys see that squad?
Yeah, saw the squad.
Some
I think
big names?
Yeah, some really big names through there. Some great players. Obviously, they're all great players. They've been selected for Queensland. Obviously, my team, the Queenslanders, so up the Queenslanders. But again, I guess for me, Ali Briggshaw is probably the most notable, along with Tamika Upton, who are like guns in the NRL women's space, NRLW women's space. But then we've got a couple of Māori girls in there, Shannon, Zahara, which is pretty cool to see. Those girls always represent Queensland and obviously jump into the Māori space as well. It's great that there's 3 games. I think, it always goes 2 and then it's 1 each, and it's like, well, who's actually the winner? Great opportunity for the women because the space is growing. The game is growing and they get an opportunity to play three matches, which then can decide who the winners are. I think it's great. Nice game before Magic Round. I think it's on the Thursday night. So it'd be great for the space and for everyone to be tuning in and seeing how they go, because that'll be the kickoff to the NRLW season.
The NRL have been fantastic in how they've grown the women's game, and they didn't try and rush it. They didn't try and go full hog at the start. They understood that the talent pool wasn't big enough to go across the league, and still not. But they started with 4 teams. They've built it up nicely. The talent pool's growing. The quality of the competition is growing, therefore. And they've done the same thing with Origin. Played 1 game, gone to a 2-game series, and it's ready now. I think it's ready, as Blair is saying, for the 3-game series. We're ready for a decider. And that's a reflection of how well the NRLW has grown. They're ready for that, and I think the fans are ready to see a 3-game series, which says a lot. I remember when it started, they were playing at North Sydney Oval. There was hardly anybody going to the games, but now it's on TV, it's live. The girls are delivering a quality product. The coaches are doing a great job. And as I say, the NRL have done a great job in promoting it. I look forward to the 3-game series. It's going to be fantastic. I hope Queensland get it.
I think there's even talk that they might even be starting their season over in Vegas. And in 2025,
True.
starting a women's game. I guess that's how big the game's growing over a short amount of time. But like you said, the patience has been there, and now they're creating these more opportunities for these women. So it's it's great. It's great for the women's space. Our younger women coming through, our younger girls coming through the 16s, 17s, and 15s. This is the pathway for them. So an opportunity for them to go up and play at that elite level and be a part of this competition.
Hard, exciting Origins just there. Dylan, you got one more thing?
Quick question. What do you guys think about it being right at the beginning of the season, though? Like a premium match. They haven't actually kicked off the NRLW season. What sort of challenges do you think they have with that?
Yeah, well, I think the challenges will be the intensity level that they play out. But I know that they've been playing in their local competitions. Again, it's not as, I guess, physical and as competitive as it is when you're in the NRLW or Origin space. I think these girls understand the difference between, I guess, professionalism and down in that local stuff as well. So they're all elite athletes in their own way. So they're most really training all year round. I guess the thing for me is, it's most probably the connection that they have together with different players from different clubs, but also being able to put on a product that's enjoyable for all of us to watch.
Yeah, these girls are playing at A level, whether that's Tasha Gale. I know there's a lot of girls that have gone across from Super Rugby Old Picky to go. So they're fit, they're ready. When you play at this level, there's a lift anyway when you put that jersey on. There's a lift when you get into camp. So there'll be some emotion, but I think their fitness levels and their footballing skill levels will be up to par. they'll be ready to go.
Up the Blues, am I right? Right, guys? Right?
No.
Right? Oh.
Lead balloon.
See, we didn't even say a word, bro, because it's just stupid what he just said.
It's just quiet.
Just silly, bro.
Crickets.
Moving on to NRL news. So it was last night the reports come out about David Fifita. At some point today, he's meeting with Ivan Cleary because he has a contract in his a clause in his contract. Where if he activates an option before the start of round 10 on Thursday night, he is a free agent at the end of the season, and the 2 years that he has left are void. So he's meeting with the Panthers. There's a chance that he could be the replacement to Fisher Harris. What do you guys?
So if he activates, he stays or he goes?
He goes. The option is to
Play on?
cancel his contract.
So he's got an option there to leave the club.
Yeah.
Which is this week, Thursday night, because they play Thursday night. So he has to have an answer before then.
So after Thursday night,
No, but
if
I
he's
think it's
not had an
before.
answer, he's a Titans player.
Yeah.
So if he says he's not going to activate it, it means he's a free agent for everyone else on the market.
No, if he says he's going to activate it. But basically the decision is if he does nothing, he'll be with the Titans for the next 2 years.
Okay. Massive. I think this is massive news, and immeasurably. There should be a lot of stress around the Titans at the minute with obviously Big Ten sitting on the sidelines, and then a big marquee player like Fifita sitting there having an option in his favour, which is more of a waiting game. I know they would have done their due diligence around the pros and cons and the ifs and buts, but if you're flying up to see Penrith Panthers and Ivan Cleary, then there may be a possibility he's thinking about moving on. Again, they've got some money there. They've got a bit of a war chest because Fisher Harris is leaving. So I think, for the Panthers would be a great signing, but it'll be a massive loss for the Titans if they lose someone like Fifita. I think he's been, again, a revelation this year again with what he's brought to the team. Whether he started or off the bench, he's done some really great things for their club. And I know that he's well liked down there as well through the players and the staff. So, when the Panthers come calling, and he's keen to sit down with you, then, hey, maybe he's on the out.
Yeah, for sure. They've joined that elite group with the Roosters in Melbourne, where if you pick up your phone and someone from that club is ringing, you answer the phone. You answer the phone. And if the Panthers have come knocking on his door, then he's got to do the due diligence by sitting down with them at least and seeing what they've got to say. Everybody knows that they're in the market for a front rower and to replace Fish for next season. It'll be a big one for him because he's a back rower. He plays on an edge, and it's very different playing on the edge to playing on the middle. Playing in the middle, especially coming off the bench. It's whether he's comfortable in doing that, which I think he would be, and playing in that group. I think he'd be great for them. But he won't come cheap. Everybody knows he signed that big deal leaving the Broncos to go to the Gold Coast. He'll be forfeiting some of that if it's cheaper. So that's another question to be answered. Would he have an impact on the Panthers? Definitely. He's a great football player. But yeah, it'll be interesting, that conversation to be had, and he would be a huge loss to the Titans. Huge loss.
It would, yeah. So the 2 years left on his Titans deal is close to $1 million a season that he's making now, and there is an $1 million gap in the books for the Panthers from Fisher Harris when he leaves. So, I mean, if they were to pay him the same, that's filling up that whole paycheck, which, what a purchase it would be.
I think, you leave your options open as a player. You never know when it's last, and we spoke about that earlier in the first comment from Fifita around, making sure you got things looking after yourself. But our game's, there's a small window as a rugby league player to play the best you can every single day, every week. But then, your lifespan of a rugby league player, you just never know what's next or what's coming around the corner. So you'd be silly not to have a sit down and have a chat and see where that sits, because he may pick up another 3 years down at Penrith Panthers, and you're not going to a club where you ain't going to get better, because they'll challenge him down there to be the best player that he can be. He's good at what he does now. Put him in another good system, man, he could be anything in the next couple of years or even 3 years for the Penrith Panthers. It's crazy.
The other thing is he's got big shoes to fill. Those are big shoes to fill in Fisher Harris and what he's done and how he's led that club. That's big for anybody that steps into that.
Well, so that's happening before Thursday. There will be a definite answer to that situation. So
Media will be going crazy.
Yeah. Keep your eyes peeled for what's going to happen with David Fifita. Moving on to the Eels didn't play this week, so I chucked in Clint Gutherson has had surgery on a knee injury. It was only a minor one, but it still means he's going to be out for about 5 weeks. Mitch Moses is still out until round 12, which is 2 more weeks of games. Man, the Eels are just having it rough. What's going to happen without?
He's Clint's the heartbeat of the Parramatta Eels, and everything he does, he's a competitor. He's tough, and you've seen over the last maybe 3 weeks that he's been carrying an injury, and it hasn't stopped him from trying to do his best, but you can see that he's not at his best. So to lose someone like him, their leader, I guess their heartbeat, is going to be a hard shoe to fill. 5 weeks isn't too bad. I think must be just a clean out on his knee. But then you also still got Mitch Moses. The conversation is always going to be Mitch Moses, but now it's Clint Gutherson as well. You got 2 quality players sitting on the sideline, and the club is under pressure. The buyers come at a good time, but not a good time for injuries as well, because now they're missing a couple of key players. It's definitely going to challenge the depth of the Parramatta Eels, especially through their pathways and the younger guys. Who's going to step up and take those positions? You know, the pressure keeps going back for me, goes back on Dylan Brown and what he can do with this team. He's much more the most senior player in the spine. Can he control this team? Can he get the win for that Parramatta team? Can he put them in position so that they give themselves a chance at winning games? Because you know, if I look at someone that's got all the experience in the spine, it's him, and you know they're going to do it tough without those 2 guys for sure.
100%. They've lost in Moses their tactical general. He gets them around the park, he kicks them down the field, and he organises them. And they've lost some of that. But with Gutherson, they've lost their talisman, their leader, their ball of energy, the one that pumps them up. You can see whenever they score, he's one to wear his heart on his sleeve, and he shows his emotion, gets behind his teammates. He's a spiritual leader for them. And to lose those 2 is really important. They've got to find someone that encapsulates a bit of both of that. And Dylan Brown's got to be the organiser, and he's also got to be a bit of a cheerleader for their team now. And he's been around long enough. He's been part of the Kiwis and been in some big games. He's got to step up to the plate when the chips are down and the pressure's on, which it is. It's on. There's a lot of outside noise about Brad Arthur and the pressure on him. He's been there 11 years and not won a title yet, and so much pressure and this and that. And just sometimes when the chips are down, things just go from bad to worse. And you've got to try and show your spine as far as your resilience to face up to the adversity and try and get your team out of it. And talk about Dylan Brown, it's the rest of the squad as well. He's got to get some help from his group, and the group as the team as a group need to gel together and just fight their way out of this as best they can.
Well, they got leaders through their middle of the pack as well.
Yep.
Juniors in there. Campbell Gillard, Madison, like those guys are quality players as well. So as well as, you know, Dylan Brown's got to do the job, he can't do anything unless their middles go forward. And if they're not playing well together collectively, then they'll be in trouble. So, you know, we put the pressure again on Dylan because he should be able to do what he does. But there's some middle players in there that should have some ownership around, you know, the direction on where they want to go in this next 5 weeks if they're missing Gutherson, or the next couple of rounds because, you know, Mitch Moses in there. So those guys need to work together as a group and come up with a way of how we're going to get our team over the line over the next 2 weeks that we don't have Mitch Moses.
Yeah, so the Eels come up on Friday against the now again injury-riddled Broncos at CommBank. So we shall see how they're going to fare without those 2 boys. Moving on from one of the most downtrodden clubs at the moment.
Your club? Was it one of your clubs?
To the other one. What do you mean one of my clubs? I'm Penrith hard, man. I don't know. I know what you're talking about one of my clubs. But the Rabbitohs finally got some good news because they have signed Lewis Dodd out of the Super League. And obviously we have a Super League expert over here, so I'm going to just throw straight to you. How excited can the Rabbitohs fans be about Lewis Dodd?
Oh, they'll be clinging on to anything to be positive about right now. You know, there's not a lot to be happy about at the moment, but this is great news for them. A lot of people won't know too much about young Doddy. He was a young prodigy coming through, and at 16 he was playing for the England 16 side. He was, he had all the talk about this young halfback coming through St Helens, to the point where a lot of rugby union clubs were knocking on his door. Even at 16, 17, the likes of Saracens and Sale were looking at him, and we thought as a game we were going to lose one of our young prospective superstars to the other game, but fortunately he stayed with St Helens, ended up playing first team 2 years later, won a couple of grand finals with them. He's had his injury run, but came through it, played really well in the win that St Helens had against Penrith to win the World Club Challenge last season. And that was a real growing point for him to come up and lead the team against Nathan Cleary and his squad away from home. Not many of us in England gave them a chance, but he was fantastic that night. He'll be a great acquisition for South Sydney. He's an organiser. For a young kid, he's a leader, but he's got a great kicking game as well. Almost similar to Sam Walker. I'm not going to put him in that pocket just yet, but he has got a nice little short kicking game to go with it. So, yeah, they're getting a really good player. South Sydney do have something that they could really be happy about.
Yeah, I think the only time I saw him play was that World Club Challenge, and I thought he did a really good job there. Again, if you don't watch too much Super League, you don't know who the players are, and you're just watching the game because you enjoy the game. And he was most probably one of the guys that stood out. Obviously, getting that drop kick as well, to put him in front to win that one. We haven't seen too many halves come over to Australia and make it big or do really well. Where he fits into the South Sydney team, left foot. Good kicking game, but then got Cody Walker and those guys on there. Where do you think they put him in there?
He's an out-and-out halfback.
Yeah.
And I think for the term of the contract, it's for 3 years, I think, they haven't said any figures, but I think they've put an investment in him to be the halfback for the side. I think it puts a bit of pressure on Elias and the other halfbacks in the group. Not sure what Cody Walker's going to do.
Yeah.
He's getting a bit long in the tooth and he needs to find some form to carry on next season. But Dodd's a halfback. He's a halfback, and I'm sure that's where they look to play him.
There's obviously big conversations around who the coach is going to be, because obviously they lost JD, which was, the game's a tough game, and oh man, I feel sorry for coaches, head coaches, and when you're under pressure, obviously normally it's the coaches that go first, and they haven't performed well for the last most of a year and a bit, to be honest, and they've been doing it tough, and I just don't think, I saw some of the game that they played and it didn't look good. They're saying that Wayne Bennett might take the job. Does he sign Lewis Dodd, or does the Rabbitohs sign him? Because again, if I'm going to sign to a club, I want to know who my coach is. So they're saying that Wayne Bennett isn't the coach yet, but there's obviously been conversations.
I think JD had a lot to do in the negotiations and the discussions with Lewis Dodd. There was a little piece that I read in the UK media that the deal that Lewis Dodd signed wasn't going to be affected by JD leaving. So I presume that was all done and dusted before JD was moved on. But yeah, they seem pretty strong rumours about Wayne going back there, and it would be a pretty good fit because he had success there last time. And you look at everything as it's lining up. Wayne's leaving, there's a spot open, he's been there before, had success. The players that are still there, they loved him then, they'll love him now. Who knows? There's also rumours that if Brad Arthur goes, he might go to Parramatta and start again.
I was just about to ask that as well. Do you think, obviously Wayne's sitting in the box seat right now, he can either go to South, because South will take him straight away, or if something happens at Parramatta, Brad Arthur goes. And if you look at the Parramatta spine, if you had them all fit and healthy, they look more competitive than what, as in the recruitment that they have compared to South's. I would be more leaning towards Para. So I think at the minute, Wayne's just sitting in the box seat going, I've got a bit of a, just pick who I want to go. He's eating his popcorns. He's just watching them go, sitting up on the farm, looking at his beef and going, hold on a minute, I can just choose where I want to go.
How many 75-year-olds are sitting in the box seat? That's crazy. But he's the greatest coach we've had in our game, and he's earned the right to sit back. He's earned the right to sit there and watch and just pick off which job he wants.
Oh, I just love how passionate he is about the game still, you know, at 74 years old. Like, for someone to still want to coach and for what he's done in the game and what he keeps on doing, I think it's great. The fellow, you know, if you go up to the farm, you sit there and you just look at the cows going by and the day going down, having a cup of tea. So if he feels like he's got some add value to a club and can do that, and which I think he can, then go for it, Wayne. You're the man, brother.
Well, as you know, he's passionate about coaching, but his coaches do a lot of the on-field coaching.
Yeah.
He's passionate about players. He's passionate about caring for the player.
Well, it's the people he cares about, eh? And to make them feel like they belong to something, or, you know what I mean? Everyone always says he's like a father figure to a lot of the players, and he would help someone like Latrell Mitchell, you know, Cody Walker, those guys that they may have just been off the rails a little bit, but he can bring them straight back into a place where they feel comfortable, they feel loved, and they go out there and they believe and they can get a job done, and that's what Wayne does really well. So, yeah, it's an interesting time. More things to come in the coming weeks, that's for sure.
We'll continue on with South and head into the games for the week. Obviously, they played on Thursday against my Penrith Panthers, baby.
Sorry.
I thought it was Dolphins, mate.
Who got this
Oh, it was
on
South
here?
Sydney.
Straight up, who got this dude on here? How much we paying him?
Nothing. It shows.
Exactly. We're not paying him anything, this fella. For her else.
In that game, I got scared early, man, when the Rabbitohs looked their best. They scored the 2 first tries. The Panthers didn't look that great to start, but then it was business as usual, you know, 42-12 in the end.
Just a well-oiled machine. I never thought that Panthers were going to lose that game. You know, the Souths had more to prove than Penrith. They needed to come out and bring the energy. They needed to work hard in the effort areas, and I know the coach said that before the game as well. They started off really well, and then just, you know, in the back end of their game, some of the tries, especially the one for me, the kick from Cody Walker into the end goal. Dylan Edwards picks the ball up, runs, and then they go the length and score a try. I think there was 2 people back on the line waiting to be able to make a tackle. I think. And there was about half the other team behind the line. So the urgency and the intent around what they're doing is just not there now. They're not playing for each other. They're not respecting, you know, the value and the culture and the systems and the structure of what they're trying to create on the fields. Because when you see something like that, that's alarm bells for me, is when there's, you know, 9 people behind the ball and 3 on the line waiting, you got problems. So they need to really check themselves, have a real hard look at themselves and think about, I guess, for me, it's going back to enjoying rugby league. That's what I think about. When times are tough and you're doing things tough and nothing's clicking, it's about going out there and playing for each other, but having a purpose and a meaning by why you do those things. But at the end of the day, it is a game of rugby league. But the game's tough and it's based around results. And the effort areas for me is the most important part around our game of rugby league. And if they're not doing those, there's something going on, bigger issues inside their group.
Sometimes when you have a change of coach, it gives you a bit of a spur. And you might, especially for that first week, you get that bit of a boost. You take some responsibility as a player, because you always feel bad that the coach has got the sack, and you do some reflection during the week and what part did I play? I've got to be better. There's a new coach, I'll try and play well for him. And they got that but didn't get it for long enough. And they got out to that 12-0 lead, and you mentioned Penrith went into overdrive. I just thought they kept doing what they do. They started doing that. Penrith don't deviate from their system, and they do it, and they do it really well. They make very minimal errors, but they defend aggressively, and they were doing that at the start, but they just got their pockets picked a couple of times. But then when they got it back to 12-all, you could just see, as Blair is saying, all the confidence that they started with just drained. South Sydney just went flat, and it's like they're watching a movie that they've seen too many times this season. And we're back here, we're back in this situation again. Regardless of the scoreboard being tied up, they could just feel like standing behind the goalpost has happened too many times this year. We're going through this over and over again. And I agree. When they did kick into overdrive was when Dylan Edwards was outstanding that second half. He made that break from his in goal, but then he caught the 40-20, ran up, beat pretty much the whole South Sydney team, to tap the ball, passed it to Taylor May. Both of them didn't get a hand on him. Neither of them got touched. And that says a lot about Penrith's quality, but also where South Sydney are at the moment. They've got a real hole they've got to fight themselves out of, and Penrith are strengthening their credentials to go back to back to back to back.
Man, if Dylan Edwards doesn't make Origin, we're protesting, bro. I'm actually protesting. That kid has done so much good for so long now, and continues to perform in every single game consistently. They've got to find a spot for him in that team, because, man, he is tough. He is what Origin's about as well. He does all the little things really well, and he competes all the time. But again, that Penrith team's a well-oiled machine, and they go about their business no matter who they play against, no matter what's happened to the Rabbitohs during the week, because the mentality doesn't change. It's turn up. We've got a job to do. We've got to go out there and get it done, and that's what it looked like. Again, like Willie said, South's come out of the blocks because they wanted to show a bit of support to their new coach. But after that, they put a lot of energy in there and just faded away. And that's where Penrith come over the top and just cleaned them up. And they just do what they do really well. But
here's a question for you. At the World Cup 2 years ago, they put Dylan Edwards in the squad and they played Teddy at fullback, Edwards on the wing.
Yep.
Could the Blues swap that around to keep Teddy there as captain?
Yeah, well, I think you put the best players in the position.
Yep.
I feel like so much in the past, and you're a massive Blues fan, so much in the past, they've just picked players just to pick players, but not necessarily picked them in the right positions. Obviously, Tom Trbojevic, you've got to have him in there somewhere, but they play him in the centres. He's quite lucky. He can play in the centres, I think so. But you've got guys that they've got must be 4 or 5 fullbacks that they can play. Pappenhausen as well. Obviously now he's injured, but there's that many fullbacks in their team. Not too many can transition from the winger to the fullback and have the same impact. So I just think that Dylan Edwards deserves this opportunity. I'm not saying Tedesco doesn't deserve it, but I just think, man, for the work that Dylan Edwards done over the time, it's a reward for being consistent, being patient, and doing all the little things really well to give himself an opportunity. And I think that's where they're going to go.
Yep.
I think Teddy's going to be around there, but I think the next couple of weeks between those two, it's going to be a shootout.
Yep.
Did they play each other?
No, they already had their first game.
Yeah, so they don't get to play each other, which would have been a good game before Origin, because that could have been the test on who's going to be your fullback. You know what I mean? So for me, and I think Dylan Edwards deserves to play at fullback. Nothing against Tedesco. I think he's a gun player and done a really good job. Yes, he's the captain, but there's a lot of captains inside that New South Wales team that captain for their clubs anyway. So I do think, for me, Dylan Edwards is the man that should take the one.
Some other Blues news out of this game was Cam Murray's injury. So he has a hip flexor injury, which came out a couple of days after the game. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. He's probably going to miss the first 2 games of Origin as well. He usually plays back row, does he? Because Isaiah Yeo is the lock.
Oh, I think Cam. It's obviously a big injury to South Sydney because they're already under the pump and they don't need to be losing someone like him. Obviously, their captain as well. My thoughts around Origin for him, he's not a back row, he's a lock. And the things he can do with the ball and how he can create momentum with his quick play of the balls and the way that he finds the ground is awesome. But I know they got Yeo as well, but I'd put him in front of Yeo and have Yeo coming off the bench. That's just my thoughts. I'm a Queenslander, you know that. So, hey, I'm just chucking bolters in everywhere. But I think that the team that gets mostly affected by this injury news is the South Sydney Rabbitohs because they don't need to be losing players right now with the pressure that they're under. So, yeah, not a good loss, not an injury that they wanted to have. Again, hip flex is a bit of an annoying injury as well. You got to use your legs a lot, so that's where it's going to come in. So, resting him up.
There's an element where I'm not surprised that he's injured because of the way he works and he just goes tirelessly for South Sydney, and he's one of the only ones in their side that can say he's worked his socks off.
Yeah.
And he does that every single week. He's in nearly every tackle. He'll carry the ball. When he's hanging out and he's tired and he looks like he's got nothing left, he'll still do and that's why he's a great captain for them. So, yeah, I agree. He's a loss. for New South Wales, but he's a huge, huge loss for South Sydney. And Ben Hornby is trying to put his name and his credentials into the hat for the available coaching job. It's a big, big dent for them.
Latrell's still got another week on the sidelines?
No, I think he's back.
He's back, because obviously they lost Dry Gray. Damien Cook went to fullback, mate. They were scrambling.
Oh, yeah.
They were under the yes, they started well, and yes, they didn't perform the best. They had key injuries in that game as well. And if you have to put your hooker at fullback, you're in a lot of trouble. So they must be lucky that Latrell's coming back this week. Hopefully they got some depth coming through, because man, you can't have your hooker, your number one hooker, sitting at fullback. And some of the things I've seen from the back there, I'm just like, man, he just wasn't up to it. It's not his position. You cannot blame him. Some of the balls I'm watching him, he didn't even bother even getting into the position. Maybe he just didn't know how to do it, because he doesn't normally play there. But man, it just wasn't good viewing, that's for sure.
There was that one on the right side where they kicked it, and the camera zoomed all the way out, and he still wasn't
under the post. He was under the post, and it was in the left-hand corner. It wasn't
It's a
good.
tough position to play fullback. You got to be ultra fit, ultra quick to play that position, because you're covering so much field. And he would have been gassed from playing hooker for however long, and then to jump back into that is, here we go.
Yeah, probably not as best for his 200th game.
That's where they're at. That's where they're at the moment.
Well, they've lost another half as well. So, you know what I mean? They're I haven't seen too much on where they're going and how they're travelling through like New South Wales Cup and stuff like that. But man, it's not good things. Not much good news coming through the South Sydney team at the minute. That's for sure.
We all just wish you the best, Rabbitohs.
Your other team?
Nah. Maybe sometimes, but not this week. Moving on to Friday game, Raiders versus Seagulls. What a comeback from the Raiders, the true Raiders spirit, especially considering last week, 40-0 they lost. They come back, they're getting blown to bits. I think it was 20-0 at halftime, or not at halftime, early on in the game. And then they come back to win 26-24. How about the Raiders? Yeah,
what a game. Hard to win at 4 points too against the Seagulls. And I think like last time I watched the Seagulls was against, I've watched them obviously over the weekends and the weekends before, but the Warriors game, I thought they were a really strong team. They go up and then, the Dragons beat them, and then I think like most teams, no one's really been a consistent performer except for maybe the Cronulla Sharks, and everyone's kind of up and down on a bit of a roller coaster and trying to find. But when you lead a team 20 points to 4 at halftime, you should be able to, with the team that they have, kick on and be able to go and take that win. But a credit, like you said, a credit to the Canberra Raiders is they are just a team that just stays in it, and you have to play them for 80 minutes. Obviously, captain comeback Elliott, who's been away throughout the start of the season with niggling injuries. I'm guessing he's starting to find a bit of his feet. He's got some game fitness under his belt and was enormous for the Canberra Raiders. I love what Kyle Weeks is doing. Obviously, another Māori kid that's come in the scenes from the Seagulls, and I think, with consistency and game time, second game in, I think he's getting better. They're going to need him to help that Canberra side out as well, because they've got a few injuries as well. So, a strong performance from the Canberra Raiders. They'll be disappointed with their first half, but to be able to come back and show the true Canberra spirit, that's what they did.
Yeah, the worrying signs for Manly are they've got out to those big leads a couple of times and been cut down. They just got to find that cutting edge and that real killer instinct to finish the games off. They're letting games back in, and full credit to Elliott Whitehead. He found the play to get the ball and then pass it off to set up Canberra's first try. But the Raiders, they're my team of the week this week after that huge loss last week, and full credit to Ricky Stewart as well. After that game, after the loss, he was really protective of his halves. And really protective that they were a young spine, still finding their feet. He didn't put any blame on them. He put an arm around them, said they'll get better. Sure enough, as you said, Kyle Weeks came out this week and had a whale of a game. His kick for Kotrick was outstanding. When he got the ball, just flirted with the touchline to score, but it was Elliott Whitehead that led the charge to come back. It was a real captain's knock. And then when Hudson Young scores late on, I still thought Manly were going to get the game, but with time on the clock going down and Hudson Young scores, this was an unbelievable comeback and some real positive signs for the Raiders with the group that they've got playing at the moment and what they're missing.
Kyle Weeks must have been pretty stoked after the game. Obviously, it's like a revenge game.
Yeah.
He never got that chance when he was with the Seagulls. And then he has a performance that definitely solidifies him as a good replacement for Fogarty while he's out. I mean, let me just look up how old he is.
Yeah, no, he's again, when you play against your old team, that's what normally happens. You know, you want to put on a performance like that because you want to show them what they're missing out on. He did get a lot of opportunities through the Seagulls, but just not in the starting position that he's in. He's come off the bench, played that 14 role, and just jumped in when they've needed him. But again, the coaches put some belief in behind this young spine and said, "Hey, we'll just keep backing them, and then they're going to get better with time." Show some believe in those boys. The boys feel that from the coach, and then they go out there and put a performance. But it was always coming for Kyle Weeks because you're coming up against your old team. You have to perform. That's why sometimes even coaches pick players to play against their old team because they know what the response they're going to get because you want to put one over them. And, you know, credit to Canberra, credit to Kyle Weeks, just keep hanging in there and keep doing his thing.
It's a bit of a cheesy one, but it is the fact. You know, when you leave a club and the fixtures come out, that's the one you look at. You do look, when are we playing the old club? That's the one I want to be involved in. I want to get back. You know, whether you had a successful time or whether they moved you on, you want to prove to them that they've missed out on having me in their group.
One more thing on this game. Last week we hadn't got the news about the Haumole and Cherry Evans ban before the game. You find out Cherry Evans... They took it off him, you know. You're all right, Daly. You don't need that ban, but we'll still give it to him.
Yeah, well, it was always going to happen, and he was probably the most important player he is the most important player for the Seagulls, and if you can defer the suspension to someone else that was involved in the tackle, and they went for the downgrade, which is fair. We said they weren't going to fight it because they wouldn't be able to win it. So he's got a downgrade. Obviously, a clean slate also helps. You know, over 300 games, they've never been to the judiciary before. The bro's not even playing up. Got to have a go, Daly, bro. Try and whack someone, mate. Stop being so nice on the field. So, you know, we said it, and I thought they obviously did the right thing by, you know, going for the downgrade and not trying to challenge the actual tackle.
Sweet. Moving on to, on Saturday, Broncos versus Roosters. Or was that on Friday?
Friday.
It was also on Friday. I'm mixing up my days.
Come on, mate.
40-18 to the Roosters. The Broncos, yet again, into... just strife with these injuries, man. They just can't catch a break. Go into the game first, but man, what are the Broncos going to do? Yeah,
I was thinking when I saw the games this weekend, this was much probably the game I earmarked to go, and hey, this is going to be a massive game for both teams. Roosters coming off some pretty strong performances, Broncos doing what they do, playing fast. And the game was most probably like that in the balance for most of the time. Some key injuries to a couple of key players, and then they just fell off the back. I guess Reece Walsh tried to do a little bit too much, tried to most probably control a little bit too much, and just didn't have the communication or the connection around him to be able to do what he can do. Obviously, through the middle of the park, they create the opportunities of Adam Reynolds for Reece Walsh to play like he does, but they just fell off really badly. Roosters just played strong. They were tough. They ran fast. You know, some really soft tries, to be honest. Through that, I think one of the May brothers got a try, which was solid. But that was like an easy try at the back. So they've got to have a bit of a look at themselves and find out. I know they've got some good depth there. They've got some good depth. Jock Madden will come straight back in. But a bicep tear and a fractured jaw, broken jaw, those are some long injuries on the sidelines, especially for Adam Reynolds, who's been a big part, but he's had some niggles through the year already. Season's only young, and I think even before the season started, they had some problems around his knees as well. So I guess for him and for the club is maintenance, which they'll be doing anyway, just looking after him. But this could be a good time on the sidelines to rest the knees, rest the legs, and get that bicep ready to go. But they'll get him back. How long? I don't know. The fractured jaw will be 6 weeks. He'll be out for 6 weeks. He'll be back. But, man, some key outs for the Broncos. And I thought they were going really well. going really well.
Yeah, I was excited by this one. I thought this was going to be the match of the round. 2 heavy hitters, both with some form coming into it. And then the Broncos go ahead through Jordan Ricky, and all the run of play was going their way. They had all the momentum.
Yeah.
But then Crichton makes the break down the left-hand side. They spread it to the right. Dom Young just speculatively throws the ball back inside. Joey Manu gets it and scores. They're back in the game. And then Crichton goes again. He's been destructive down that left edge to give them some field position. They go ahead and never gave it up. The Broncos never got the response that they needed. Jesse Arthurs, unfortunately for him, trying to make a tackle, gets a Dom Young shoulder in the jaw, and he's out for a little while. And then to lose Adam Reynolds again, that bicep trying to make a tackle, looks like it's torn off the bone for 3 or 4 months, they're saying. 12 weeks, possibly 12, 14 weeks.
14 weeks.
So he's a huge, huge loss. But they've got to take that. Jock Madden's got to take that opportunity to step up and make it his own now for the next little while. And yeah, it's been a tough one. They've not been able to roll out a side consistently this year, the Broncos, but the Roosters are really finding some form. You know, they had a big win against St. George the week before. I think they've scored 100 points and conceded 36 in the last 2 weeks, which is huge, attacking-wise, but also defensively. A really, really good sign for them. A question for you, Adam, is Adam Reynolds wants another contract and he's after another deal. You know, how wary are the Broncos now with all his injuries?
Well, depending on the length, I think he's important to the club, but he's also important to the guys below him. So development-wise, so Jock Maddens, Ezra Mams, and whoever else they have underneath them. So if I'm thinking about how long we have Adam Reynolds left, even if it's just a year contract, and you're mostly guessing that you're not going to get most of the season at him, so it's about using him to help develop and upskill some of the guys underneath him so that they can come and take his place. So I think, signing him for a year, I wouldn't sign him more than a year, because at the minute they can barely keep him on the field. Yes, he's getting a little bit older. The game's speeding up. His knowledge is wealth with what he does, and his kicking game is outstanding. So if he can pass that on to the younger kids coming through around, I guess, staying calm and then understanding what the game looks like, I guess that's where you get your value out of Adam Reynolds moving forward. You emotionally know that you're not going to get him on the field for most of the season, but the value you'll get from him will be the stuff on the sidelines or in the developments and the pathways of the guys underneath. So I think, maybe a year max. And then mostly pushing him into that coaching roles and helping in spine and that kind of work. So I think, value around more off-field than on-field.
Just on the Roosters being so good over these past couple of weeks, one of their standouts is probably Angus Crichton. He has been one of the best back rowers in the whole NRL to start the season. And we said before about Murray is out of the Blues, and I know you said he shouldn't be a back rower, but he was playing there in the past seasons. Could a guy like Crichton now come back into Origin and take that place?
Yeah, well, he definitely can. I think if you're looking at form back rowers, him and Liam Martin, that'll be pretty solid back row for you fellas, eh? You'd like that? You'd like that. I just think, he's one of the guys I think that is moving on. Is he moving on? I think he might be leaving at the end of the year.
There's some rumours he might go to European rugby.
I don't think it's confirmed, though.
It's not confirmed. I think the Roosters are quite confident, quietly, that they'll be able to hold on to him. I think he'd be a good keep for them.
Well, I definitely think he's coming into his own the last few weeks, especially off the back of the Anzac, and then last night they're coming up against a Warriors team that's not performing well at the minute as well. So, I think that's where they've done so well. I think Connor Watson, and I think we've seen that with him and around the Anzac game, around the middle of the park is where the game's starting to move real quick with those guys like AJ Brimson's short feet. He's quite similar when he gets around the ball and he moves his feet around there, making guys, I guess, miss tackles or just legs tackles where he can get up and play the ball. Like, he's been really important to the momentum and the change of where the Roosters are going. So those guys, man, are doing a really good thing at the minute. Attack-wise and defensively, their line is a premiership team. If you go through their team, they're a premiership contender. If they can keep continuing on their form and what they're doing, keeping everyone healthy, they are changing the game.
Yeah, a couple of things for me. One is Angus Crichton's played a couple of Origin games and never let New South Wales down. So he's reliable, he's trusted. So I think they can feel comfortable if they select him. On his form, I think it's been a little while. He missed a chunk of footy at the start of last year, post-World Cup. He was going through some mental health issues and took some time away from the game. And I think the Roosters and Trent Robinson did a great job in managing him through that and showing some compassion to give him some time off. And his dad came out publicly and spoke about some of the issues that he was having and how he needed that break and how concerned he was for his son. And I think the support that he got from the club and from the game and from his teammates has got him to where he is today.
Yeah.
The support that the club showed him, he's repaying the faith and he's got himself physically fit, but mentally fit and healthy to be going and finding the form that he had a couple of seasons ago that got him into that Australian jersey in the World Cup. The other one, we're talking about fast feet players around the ruck. I think that's a byproduct of reducing the substitutions, and it was a way of the game bringing the little fella back into it. Now, with the higher subs, we were able to get one big man off, get him on, and the big man was dominating. But by getting that fatigue element and the bigger fellas, we're starting to get that quick bloke around the ruck, the AJ Brimsons, those types of fellas, and Ezra Malms. They're able to expose some of that fatigue, and if there's a middle that's heavy-legged, they're going at him, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see and great for our game.
Well, I've got a quick question for you, Willie. You heard my thoughts on the fullback. Mine is Dylan Edwards, and we've seen the game that Tedesco had on the weekend. I think 260 metres, like enormous. Who do you go for? Who will you pick?
If New South Wales had won the series last year, I'd go with Tedesco.
Yep.
He's tried and trusted, but I agree it's time for Edwards. I just think it's his time. He's done it over, as you said, a long period of time. He's won grand finals, and he's been the best fullback this year. Last week's performance has solidified him. At the moment, that could change next week and the week after. But at the moment, I think Dylan Edwards is the best fullback in the game.
He's
new era for Madge as well. Might as well start fresh.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, new coach. Your way. You're not taking on the old coach's team. You come in fresh. You put your mark on. You put your stamp on. And he's done things differently already. He's taken them out to the Blue Mountains. Normally they're in these nice places and they're living the life. Rugby league players like we all do. While we're playing, not anymore. If he can have his way, and I think, man, this is a new start for Madge, and I think it's an opportunity for him to go, yep, bang, bang, bang. This is my team. I'm rolling with these guys, and I'm giving them first crack. So yeah.
No.
Dylan Edwards up there.
We're all Team Edwards here now. So, Dylan, if you want any help with anything we can offer you to help you get to that number one jersey in the Blues, let us know.
If we phone you, Dylan, just don't forget to pick up, mate.
Yeah.
We might
Give us a plug.
Yeah.
Moving on to now the Saturday games, the Bulldogs versus the Tigers, which the Bulldogs, they're in the 8 now, solidified themselves. That was a pretty hectic game though, eh?
Messy. I think a lot of chit-chat from all players. The game was all over the shop, I thought. Tigers, when it started well, Bulldogs were coming into their own, and then it was back and forwards, and it just got messy at the end of it, and some silly mistakes from a couple of players at the Bulldogs, or from the Tigers, I mean. Sorry, Clemmer, obviously, there was so much chat on the field that the ref had to tell them to calm down and stop talking as you're going to go to the bin. So he goes to the bin for back chatting. It's not on. Like, whatever you say to the ref isn't going to change the ref's mind. So I don't see the point in doing that. There's obviously a lot of comments going on from the players on the field. So he's got 10, and then Safer comes in, and there's another opportunity there. I think there was still 16 minutes to go, and the game was still in the balance. I think there were eight points out of it, and they could have, having their full complement of players, they could have challenged the Bulldogs a little bit harder. But man, that game was messy. Messy.
Yeah, really scrappy, really ugly in the context of getting any flow in the game. It was really stop-start, and then there was a bit of a push and shove, and Reid Marnie tries to come in and flex his little muscles again, and, as if he didn't learn from Jack Hetherington trying to shape up to him in the tunnel. But the Dogs are a bit of a surprise package at the moment. They're putting things together at the right time. They're a smoky for the 8.
Yeah.
They're sitting in the 8 at the moment, but they're a real smoky for the 8. But Viliame Kikau and his form this season so far has been enormous. And if he could probably play in Origin.
Can he?
Possibly, I think.
I think he can. Like, Fiji's not a tier 1 team,
Yeah, so he could possibly... Queensland, I think.
Queensland.
I think started at the Cowboys. Yeah, started at the Cowboys, I think. So, yeah, that'd be an interesting selection.
Wow.
If that's come to it. But Bronson Cherry, he's missed a couple of seasons. It's like he hasn't skipped a beat.
Yeah.
Then they've got Adokara, of course, and we've spoken glowingly about that left edge. But Burton was really, really good on the weekend. Crichton's starting to find his feet in the new club, and his leadership's been valuable for them. So, yeah, they're a real dark horse. Unfortunately for the Tigers, they've had too many ebbs and flows in the season. They haven't really got themselves going. They've got enough quality, but they've got to get that other stuff out of their game, the stuff that distracts them from being the team that Benji knows that they can be.
Well, when you're struggling, that's what you end up doing, you know what I mean? You're trying to find things to change games, and sometimes it's not the right things, like the niggle.
Yeah.
They can't afford to be niggling other teams. They've just got to be nice and clean, complete real high, kick into the corners like Benji Marshall would be saying to them. They can't afford to be trying to niggle other teams.
No.
And Reid Marnie, mate, if you come 7th man and someone needs to chop his face, chop. Those little fellas, mate, they're cheeky fellas. Like, the game's gone that way because now it brings those fellas into the game, and you know most 9s are already cheeky fellas anyway, but if you're coming 7th man, and like he should have been on the sidelines as well for making it worse than what it was. They're struggling, the Tigers, like you said, to find some consistency with their performances, and they're going to have to try and find something over the next few weeks. But I guess the competition for me, when I look at the table and you see the 8th is 10 points. The guys that are on 14th, I think the Warriors are 14th, and they're on 7 points. So the competition is so tight at the minute, but I guess the next 3 weeks before Origin is important for all clubs to try and get yourself in a higher position closer to the 8, because if you don't get those few wins in the next couple of weeks, if you don't get any wins before Origin, and you don't pick up anything in Origin, there's like 5 games there where you could pick up some points. If you don't, then it's going to be hard to find the 8th. But I like where the Bulldogs are heading. We speak about their edge all the time, and I think Kikau is coming into his own. He can play for Queensland, so I don't know if we'll end up playing for Queensland, but man, he is finding some form, and the Bulldogs are doing really well with Bird and everyone else that have just come into the side that are trying to build some consistency. So you got to give them props, because at the start of the season and after the first couple of performances, you wouldn't have thought they'll be sitting in the 8, but they are in the 8 now, and they're going after it.
I'll pose an interesting one to you, because I've seen some people talking about it. So Josh Curran just scored his first try of the season. Some people have said he's the signing of the season. I don't actually remember who else was signed in this off-season. But, Crichton, Curran. Who would be your guys' signing of the season so far?
Well, I think you know why people like Joshy, and he did the same thing at the Warriors. He's just the workhorse. He just does all the little things really well. But when you think about big signers, is who has the biggest impact for your side, or who has the biggest impact that you've brought into your team that's changed games. And I guess for me, it's the leadership that Crichton has brought, and the experience and the knowledge that he's been able to give the support around him. I like what Joshy Curran does, and he's been doing that forever, and hence why Gus Gould got him over to the Bulldogs, because they needed someone there that could clean up all the little stuff, do all the little hard work, effort areas, and work really hard. Our game's based around effort areas, and Josh Curran does that all the time. So I'm guessing people are starting to notice what Josh Curran does really well. Yes, he doesn't score too many tries, but he works his butt off. I think he might have even played in the front. Like, he can play front row, anywhere in the middle. The roles have changed. Well, the roles are quite similar anyway now, but he also can run really tough lines on the edge. So I think if there's a a person that's been a big signing, it's obviously Crichton for me. The captain as well, like that's big.
Going into the season, I thought Jack Whiten was going to be the signing of the year. But unfortunately not, and it's nothing to do with him, just the situation he finds his team in.
Yeah.
And the way his team is performing, he hasn't been able to hit any of the form that they'd hoped, and I thought he could. And he can't have the effect that they would have liked him to have had and what he had on the Raiders. But yeah, Josh Curran, understated, most probably undervalued. And something I was just talking about him this morning, actually, my son, who still lives in the UK, big Warriors fan, massive Warriors fan every week, and he's saying how filthy he is that the Warriors let him go, and he could have still been a really important cog to them. But I understand they tried to get Capewell in, and he cost a bit more, and they had to move some players on. But yeah, it's one that got away for the Warriors, and he's been great. He's been a real big part. We talk about that left edge, but he's been a big part of their resurgence.
On to the Storm versus the Titans. Next game, Seabus Super Stadium. Ended back. Storm are back to their way that they have been this season, only winning by 2 points. After that massive win, it was back to normal. And you guys have both said, I think, about Brimson today.
Yeah.
So do you want to start on him?
Enormous. He's a fullback, and I think we said that last week. I just like what he can do with the ball and how fast he can do things with his feet around the middle of the park. He's damaging. He's not the biggest fullback in the competition, but he's tough with what he does. He's a massive key and importance to that Titans team. And on their little bit of their resurgence of where they're going as well, I think they've been that was a big game for the Melbourne Storm. 200 games for Munster. Everyone was supporting him. I know he was all through the media and how much he's changed his life from where he started to where he is now, and the football player that he's become and what he can do on the field. Obviously, Walsh had his 150th, so they cherish those moments and they do a really good job down at the Storm about making sure they celebrate those things. But the Titans were there to spoil the party, and I thought they could have got this one over the line. I think they're building something special down there. The Titans have been in the fight, and I guess they haven't won too many games, but I feel like they're building something really, really special down there. And I think it's off the back of what Brimson is doing at the back of the field. Like, man, he is electric. We spoke about the importance of these smaller guys with their feet. He is the key part to the Titans' success this year and keeping him mostly in that fullback position.
And unlucky he didn't get the winner.
Yes.
He actually went over the line, but they went back to the bunker review and saw there was an obstruction and scratched that one off. And then Brian Kelly does a head-high tackle. They kicked the goal with about 10 minutes to go that eventually got them the win. But they're always in the fight. They're a bit like the Dogs, the Titans, and I felt so sorry for them because they deserved it. They deserved it. But, yeah, Melbourne had so many reasons to win this game with the celebrations and the milestones.
Yeah.
But it came at a cost. It came at a cost for them. Pappenhausen's out again with what they're saying, a fracture, and could have lost Jerome Hughes for at least a week. So, yeah, it was expensive. But because they went off, young Sua Fa'alogo got a chance at the back.
How good.
Lightning, that kid. And he was great under the high ball when he got tested. But that try off the scrum, he just comes around, beats the centre, has the winger to beat, turns him inside out. He's still picking up his boots, goes round him and scores with a dive. And Blair will be able to tell me a little bit more. I know they don't like Blair celebrating too much, so when he dives, he does the big dive and carries on a bit. as you can understand, I think the coach might be having a chat.
That's so funny down there, man. It's the most important thing is just to score the bloody try. And so Craig Bellamy's massive on just scoring a try and just get rid of all these celebrations. But I think he's changed over his time. You know what I mean? Like, when I was down there, I was a kid and I was 16, 15 years old, and it was his way or the highway. But I think the longer he's been in the game, the more he's been able to open up to the newer ways of things and the newer style of kids and how they play. And Sua Fa'alogo, that's what he does. He's an excitement machine, and now I think he gets an opportunity to play at fullback with Pappenhausen injury, because they've got to find somewhere for this kid to be on the field. He is an NRL player. I've seen him play at New South Wales Cup. He's way too good to be down there, and if the Storm don't put him on the field, I think he may have signed on again, but clubs will come knocking on their door and say, hey, if you ain't going to play him full time, we're going to take him in. He's a gun. I just like the energy that he brings. I love that he backs his speed and ability. His footwork is out of this place. You haven't seen too many players jump around in the air and, people just watch him in the air, and it just mesmerises people with just the height he gets at, and then just goes whack, whack, see you later, shut the gate, score the try. He's the actual man at the minute.
And it's a great story too. Born in Samoa, didn't leave Samoa till he was about 14, I understand. Went to Melbourne with his auntie and uncle, and so he was a late comer to the game. And when you think about some of the ones that over here in Australia started at 5, 6, 7, he was a real late starter, but obviously took to the game instantly, and the Storm have got him in the system, done a really good job of coaching him and teaching him rugby league. And he's one to watch out for the future as well. And with the absence and with the injury to Pappenhausen now, this is his chance. He's been in and out, trying to put him in that 14 role, trying to find a spot to put him in. He gets to play at fullback for a bit. I'm really excited to see how he goes.
Yeah, big next, it will be around 4 to 5 weeks 4 to 6 weeks that Pappenhausen's out, so 4 to 5 weeks that he'll have.
Yeah, just anywhere on the field, bro. Between wing and fullback, I think anywhere between wing and fullback, just get him on the field.
So do you reckon? Let's say Pappenhausen, he doesn't displace him. Does he go instead of Warbrick, maybe type of thing, or?
Warbrick won't go fullback.
No, I mean like
on the wing.
Fa'alogo, if he can't, when Pappenhausen's back from the injury.
No,
I think they keep Warbrick and Coates.
Yeah.
So it's just temporary. But
it's just
exciting
temporary.
for the next 4
But
to 5
you carry him as a 14 anyway, I think now. Surely you've got to put him on, the games that he's played, he's never let anyone down. And he's scored tries, and he's an X factor. You give him the ball off a scrum, one-on-one, he's going to beat you any day of the week. So I'm nervous anyway if I'm defending him. So, mate, when you have guys like on there, you got to find a position for those guys to play. So he can win a game for you if you need him. Put him on a one-on-one, and good luck.
Bills.
Willie, you had some dealings with him over in Samoa. Can you tell us a little bit what he's like actually off the field?
Yeah, he's a great kid. He's a great young fella who a sponge for knowledge of the game, and the thing I liked about him is he knew who to put himself around, and he hung around Stephen Crichton a lot throughout because he knew that he had some really good work habits, and every single day he'd be with him, stretching, learning, watching. But he's a ball of energy. He plays that way, but he's a ball of energy. From the moment he wakes up to the moment he goes to bed, he's just non-stop jabbering, going, everything's 100 mile an hour, and funny young lad. And so a great person.
Reckon he dives into bed at night. I'm going to go for a sleep.
I didn't have to tuck him
in. Next up was the Cowboys versus the Dolphins. Dolphins got the close win, 28-26. They had Kaufusi and Lemuelu back. So it's been a big thing that they've had so many injuries. They had a couple back, and they did better than the Cowboys.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I actually sat down and, it had me engaged. I thought, the most exciting game for me of the round was this one. I thought they played both played a good brand of rugby league. Some good tries scored, some great defence as well. And they went right down to the last minute, or down to the last kick where, they went for a drop goal to try and get the 2 points to draw the game, But, for me, Cody was good at the back there. I thought through their spine test, through the front test, he knew was strong. I thought they did a great job through the middle of the park, Kafusi playing at front row too, so they might see him a little bit more front row. I heard Jesse Bromwich wrapping him up and how good he was, and I think Jesse's trying to get him to take his spot. So I think, we may see a little bit more from Kafusi in the middle of the pack, but it always helps when you get some experience back into any team, and those guys are big players for the Dolphins. They've got so many injuries as well, but managing to get jobs done. So I thought that they had a great game, the Dolphins, and I thought, both teams went well. They'll be disappointed, the Cowboys, off the loss. But again, the game's made up of moments, and there's moments there that they'll look back on and go, we could have been better there. We should have stopped this defensively. But attack-wise and defence-wise, for me, it was a great game of rugby league to watch.
Yeah, really good game, and always tough playing up in the heat of Townsville. But I thought Cody Nikarima was a standout and showed some of his vintage ball playing skills and set up a couple of beauties there for the Dolphins. And one story for the Cowboys was Thomas Mikaele getting some game time and coming off the bench for them. He's had some promise as a young fella coming through at the Tigers and been a bit of a journeyman. Had to travel a little bit to the UK a couple of times throughout his young career, and he's still not. I still think he hasn't started his career yet. He's still finding his feet, and gone to the Cowboys on a trial basis. Had a really good pre-season with them, trialled really well, got into their top 30, and now he's getting some game time, and he's got to try and continue making every post a winner. So every time he gets a game, he's got to show them why they've signed him, and he's got potential. He's a big body, and he's got some fitness behind him too. He can play some minutes. But he can be a real X factor behind Griffin Nemo, I think, is another big body that they've got. And when Taumalolo kicks into gear with McLean, he can be a real force for them to add to that pack.
Yeah, he played 21 minutes in this game, his second of the season for them. He had 3 offloads, and 2 of them dead and basically off the offload, got almost through the entire team. So, like to see him getting some more opportunities.
Dearden's been really good for the Cowboys. One of those guys that just competes. He kind of reminds me of Ben Hunt. Like they're just in the game, and they're tough little players. They just find ways around to just be in the picture, and Dearden does that consistently week in, week out for the Cowboys. And then off the back of that, you see Drinkwater come into play. They were really lucky not to score a try near the end. Drinkwater, I think Drinkwater and the other halfback, they got stuck with a ball in their hand. It's like knock on, because they both saw the opportunity and they both went to go grab the ball, and there was a knock on. Drinkwater scored it, but they went back and said it was a knock on. But between those their spine. They've got a really good team. It's obviously started the competition off with 4 straight wins, and then now gone on to 4 straight losses. They'll be wondering what's going wrong over there, because you can see the good stuff in their game that it's really good, and then some of the stuff that when they scored on, like the decision making on the edges, is mostly where they want to be better as well.
Sweet, and then we'll go on to Sunday's games. Warriors versus Knights. You said the Cowboys have lost 4 in a row. The Warriors are now a month winless with that draw. And in that terrible weather over in Newcastle, it was another one of those games for the Warriors. Yeah,
definitely hard watching. I think harder than watching the Tigers Bulldogs game. I thought with the weather was terrible. The pitch wasn't any better. But again, they come off a 10-day turnaround. I think they get 3 days off after their last loss. And I think the important thing for the Warriors was to come out of the gates and blow the Newcastle Knights off the park with the energy and the amount of time that they've had on the side. Didn't see that. I think, the first 25 minutes for the Newcastle Knights, I think they completed at 90%. I think at one stage there was 5 penalties and 4 errors, and that was in the first 25 minutes of the game. That was the Warriors. So some of that stuff is just, again, the weather didn't help, but you can't. The discipline for me is where they're letting themselves down. The contact area, they're not winning that area, the ruck area, and then they're making poor decisions out wide. I don't know what's going wrong at the moment with the Warriors around their attacking and their defensive stuff. I think, if you can clean up the ruck area and win that part, then everything else kind of looks after itself. But again, the connection out wide for me, there's must be when you're doing it tough, sometimes you panic and you make rational decisions, and that's what it feels like at the moment for me, is they're trying to solve things individually rather than collectively as a group, because the only way they're going to solve all these issues that they're having is together as a team. So it just didn't look good. I didn't think the Knights were any better. The Warriors still had a chance to win their game, but what you got to do is give credit to the Knights. They hung tough. They defended well. It's a wet game. I felt like the Warriors were trying to go sideways too much, and Dallin was getting, pretty much running out nearly, and the Newcastle Knights just shifted him across the field. I know that Stacey come out in halftime and said that they need to square up their attack and play through him. The moment they play through him, they score a nice try, Dylan Walker. And that's what they're doing, I guess, at the start of the year in their first games, where they were winning games. Their ball playing through the middle of the park was squaring up the line and giving the guys out wide opportunities to play their style of football. They haven't been able to do that, whether it's been the opposition that have tightened up their middle areas and just really defended well. I don't know, but at the minute they've got to find something that's going to have to change their mentality, or the way they get out of this is to work hard together and try and come over the top.
I think it's quite evident confidence is low, individually and collectively. There's some players that are really down on confidence in their abilities, and therefore that manifests itself in the team not being able to connect. And things were coming so easy last year. Things were just flowing, and they were playing a lot. When you're like that, you play on instinct. You know what the next bloke's doing, you trust what they're doing, and you know where your line has to be and when you're going to get the ball. They have a predictability about them. It's become easy to defend. And they've done it for a year and a half now, and teams are able to get off. And I said this last week, they're playing so deep and so early. And that's evident when Dallin gets the ball, and he doesn't have the room that he had last year to run to the corner, and he's almost running into touch and flicking it back. Rocco Berry's getting no space. Chance is getting bundled into touch. And I think they need to come up with, if they keep the same shape, a different strategy to change angles and do. I thought when they played against the Dolphins in pre-season, they were playing really square at the line. Tohu played straight at the line. I remember Adam Fanua-Blake, he held the middle defenders when he played straight, and then Sean got the ball out the back. He played straight at the line, and they were just getting overlaps, nice and easy. But that's missing at the moment. And if that's their recipe, if that's their system they're going to stick to, then they're going to have to get some bruises and play at the line and take a whack when you're carrying the ball, because they're just playing way too early for the defence to read and fan off. But confidence is a big one, and my biggest disappointment for them is after the 10-day turnaround, I thought they looked flat. I thought they looked tired and fatigued. And some of that is because they made so many errors and conceded so many penalties. But I agree with Blair, they needed to come out with a bang and say, we've had the rest. We had 3 good days off. We're ready to go again. And they've got themselves in a bit of a hole now, and they can really get out of it in a big way by winning these next 2. Get the Roosters and Penrith, turns everything around, and you forget about the last 4 weeks. But they're really, really tough, those 2.
Yeah, I just think the energy around the middle of the park has gone away. Their sting that they had with their ball playing, but also their running around the middle of the park. Again, like we're talking about squaring or taking the ball to the line or not playing early. I haven't seen them going to the one time they go to the line, Dylan Walker actually has to do a tough, and he still had some work to do to get through, but that's the Warriors of early rounds, is the middle forwards are really going and challenging the middle park, so they're holding the defenders in close, which then allows to give those spaces out wide for those boys to do what they do. So I feel like that's where they're lacking the energy around. Is it because they played big minutes? These smaller teams are getting them around the ruck. Yesterday's game was a wet game, so I guess the Knights were quite tight. So I wanted them to play around them, which we all know predictability. We all know what the Warriors are going to do. They are going to go and try and run around you. So they allowed them to try and do that by just keeping everyone nice and tight through the middle of the park, because they knew this is where they come. When you play the Warriors, you know that they're coming through the middle of the park because they've got some big bodies. Adam Fanua-Blake can do what he does. Tohu Harris, Mitch Barnett, they're tough carriers of the ball. But in this wet weather, it makes it even more harder for those guys to do their job, because the guys the defensive team just tightens up. So they've just got to tinker with a few of their, I guess, I guess game plans and I guess structures and systems are key, and I guess knowing what the oppositions are doing. And I know everyone does that stuff, but they're so committed, which is good, to the processes. But I think sometimes they've just got to run them a little bit sharper. I just don't think they're running them with the intent that they have in the past.
Yeah, and you can't cut off your nose to spite your face. And be stubborn. This is how we do it. We're going to stick with it. If it's not working, you may have to make some adjustments and make some alterations. And I think that's what they need to do in order to get that confidence back. And simple fix-ups, I think. There's simple fix-ups. And it starts every single day. You've got to get the repetition, get the confidence in what you're doing, and transfer that confidence into the game.
Yeah, the only way they get out of it is just to stay tight together and try and dig themselves out of this hole as a collective. And that takes, I guess, the compliment of the Pathways boys as well. I know that they're staying over in Australia, so that ultimately helps with all the travel that they do. Understandable, because that's normal with the Warriors. They travel a lot. Yep. So being able to stay over there, bunker down, work hard together, find them way out. And like you said, they win these next 2 games. No one knows what happened 4 weeks ago. They're just looking at your performance right there and then. And Roosters, Penrith, it'll definitely challenge the toughness or where the club sits up against these 2 heavyweight contenders of the competition. And then, you're heading into match round the Penrith Panthers, and wowee, what a tournament, what a comp that we have, rugby league.
Last game of the week was the Sharks versus the Dragons. Shane Flanagan's return. I don't really know what happened with that. We don't have to get into it, but he was chatting a little bit. He was doing a little bit of talk before, and then they lost.
Well, he's won a premiership for the Sharks. That's the chat.
I knew that part.
So he's penciled that one in a game that he wanted to win. Rivalries, the Beaches, a big Dragons and Sharks matchup. Most of it didn't go the way that the Dragons wanted. I thought they done some good things in the game, but I don't think Sharks were at their best. But when you're not at your best, but you're consistently winning and you win these games, this is what happens. This is what happens when you're under a little bit of pressure, opposition-wise. You can't seem to find, or you don't get those 50-50 calls. And I thought, that game was, a game for either team. But the Sharks were just the most dominant team in the end. They come home and been able to get that performance. So not the most exciting game. Again, like I enjoyed other games over the weekend, but, they're at the top of the ladder and going really well right now. Nico Hines is obviously in the box seat to take that 6th position in Origin, and there's some quality players. Alfred McInnes, big raps on him for what he does. They're thinking about him in Origin as well. So they're obviously doing some really good things through that club, obviously backing their coach and their structures. He's been able to build a system and some structures around this club over the last few years that he's been in there, and now reaping the rewards for the effort and the defence. Again, defence wins competitions. I feel like the better teams are the ones that are defending well. They're more disciplined with what they do, and you get the results on the back of that.
Yeah, This is one of 3 maybe, with Broncos and Redcliffe, South and East, or the Roosters, of a derby that we have in the NRL. The 2 teams that were situated in close proximity to each other. So always a big game when they play each other. And there was no different this week for various reasons, as you're talking about. Shane Flanagan won the premiership, moved on after the drug debacle and everything that happened, and he leaves. They move his son on to the Roosters. He doesn't quite make it, goes to the Dogs, and then his dad signs him up again at the Dragons, and they want to try and prove wrong and that they needed him back there. But Cronulla, as I said last week, they're in form. When you're in form, sometimes you don't have to be at your best to win the game, to get the win. You just find those ways, and one of those ways they're finding at the moment is to give it to Big Hazelton.
Oh, bro. He's exciting, isn't he, the big fella?
Tom Hazelton, the big lanky front rower, just finding try after try.
He is fast too, bro. I've seen him in space. There was a game we played against the Warriors. He got this like a 50-metre break. No one could catch him. They had to pull it back, bro. It wasn't a try, but I was like, wow, he's a fast front rower. Yeah. So, they're looking to him all the time near the line for sure.
Yeah, top try-scoring front rower in the league, along with Fanua Blake. Adam was 4. And so, he's a big one. We talk about Nico Hines and Kennedy and, the wingers that they've got But Tom Hazelton, he's getting his name in some lights there, just scoring some tries and getting over for them.
Thomas the Tank Engine, eh?
You're on fire.
Bro, who got him? And
Thanks, guys. Considering the way the Sharks won, like you just said, different from obviously the past 2 weeks, they've had these massive wins. Is that adding to their sort of caliber, that their argument that they can go far in the finals because they're winning a different way? They're not just dominating teams that are having an off night, but also this one was pretty close at times.
I think their first concern will be to get to the playoffs. And then when they get to the playoffs, if they do, is to win a playoff game, because they haven't won a playoff game under Fitzgibbon yet.
Yeah.
So that's their first concern, and then they can worry about whatever run they try and get on. They've got a bit of a monkey on their back as far as getting to the playoffs, and then get knocked out at the first time of offering. They've got to try and get there to start with, and then see if they get to the top 4. Obviously, they get 2 bites at it, but yeah, that'll be their big concern. It's just try and find some consistency to get to the 8.
Yeah, they're definitely a team that can be in the 8. I think when they lose Nico Hines, will be interesting to see how they go if they got some games around that origin period. But yeah, I guess like every team, we just got to get to the 8, and once we're in the 8, then the whole competition changes again. Is how do we go to that next level? How do we win the comp? So a strong, like they're putting in some strong performances, whether they win by big points or just win. They're much more the form team of the comp right now, for sure.
Last thing, this is just a small thing which I saw when I was reading up on the stats of the game. So Tom Eisenhuth for the Dragons, he played 61 minutes and he made 63 tackles.
What's he up to?
So if he had have played 80 minutes, he could have broken Cam McInnes's record from last season, which I thought that was interesting.
That's a lot of tackles. That's like 1 every minute, nearly. Wow, what's he up to? Just pumping them out. They obviously must have had a target on him, and just said, hey, when Tom's on, we're just going to spot him up and we're just going to go whack, whack, whack and make him make tackles. But, geez, that's a lot of tackles.
Do you have any carries?
I think he got double digits carries as well.
Oh, the big fella. Got an engine on him then.
But yeah, so, I mean, maybe he's in form at the moment as well, but... Yeah, I just thought, I don't know, that was so random that I saw that. But that was the end of the games.
Well, you are random anyway, my boy.
Yeah, I am pretty random. But
like, you're just like the random person in the show.
Well, exactly.
Aren't you?
That's what I'm saying.
Besides Dills. What about, just quickly before you wrap up, local stuff. Fox's, the competition's on. How'd you go?
No, we had a loss. Manukau were too good for us on the weekend. Beautiful day Saturday afternoon.
Oh, wasn't it?
She was warm. So, yeah, as you do in the game, we got punished for too many errors and indiscretions around the ruck. Manukau were too good for us. So, yeah, we unfortunately got our season underway to a loss. We dust ourselves off, go to work again tomorrow at training and get ready for Otahu tomorrow.
Work-ons? Oh. What are the work-ons, you reckon?
A bit of discipline and focusing them back on some fundamentals. That's what's hurt us in the qualifiers is some of our ball control. When we did control the ball, we controlled field position, and we had the lead there for a little bit.
Yep.
We just let it go by losing some focus on our D. So, yeah, plenty to work on.
You would have seen the result on Wednesday night, Richmond.
Yeah, really good for Richmond. Exciting game. You know, come down to the last seconds. They kick the ball. Poinchev get penalised. Then Richmond get the ball with 40 seconds to go, I think, and then they end up scoring right next to the post. So, great way to start the season. Great advert for the game, and great grand final replay.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't have watched all the games over the weekend because you would have been coaching, because most of the games all at the same time. The teams that you may think are going to be a standout this year in the Fox, what are you thinking? Yeah,
Otahu, I think Sua Fa'alogo does a great job with them. Been coaching. Was a great player.
Oh, Big Tuss.
Big Tuss. Yep. I played with him through all the age groups. We're the same age, and it's great to see, the other guys that we played with still giving back to the game.
Yep.
The game that gave us so much, he's still giving back to the club that he served so well as a player, and bringing the next generation through. And I think Mount Albert will be dangerous. And John Ackland, who's obviously a big name in the coaching circuit here and was a great player at Mount Albert during their golden era. They'll be dangerous again. His son Aiden, who was great at the Warriors in the Cup last year, one of the more dangerous players in the comp.
Do you think there's any guys through that Fox that can go to that next level or come into like New South Wales Cup and then?
I think so. Ability-wise, I do. There's a couple in the competition. Depends on their ambitions and their opportunities. Some of them, for whatever reason, they may have young families and their focus is on working, which you totally understand, and they can't get away. Some of them, age has just got away from them.
Yep.
So, but they're still good enough.
Yep.
Not too many NRL clubs are going to pick up a guy from the Fox at 26, 27. But there's some 26, 27-year-olds who are still quality in the comp. But, it's still a worth look, Blair. It's still worth some clubs coming down and have a look. You'll find some diamonds there.
Well, it's definitely, again, the question, why I asked the question is most probably more around making sure that they understand that there's still opportunities. So if you're doing really well and to not give up on the dream. If the dream is to go into that New South Wales Cup space and also push on to first grade, that it's never over. We've seen guys at 26 play NRL.
For sure.
So the opportunity is more around making sure that if there is guys that have got an ambition or a dream to play in that space, is to just keep working hard, and you just never know who's watching.
100%.
And is that us?
Yeah, that's us.
Well, whānau, that's a wrap for this episode. Make sure you tune in and check out everything that we spoke about on our YouTube channels, our social media. It's going to be dropping today, Monday, 4 p.m. Make sure you tune in, check it out, subscribe, go after it. We love yous. Thanks for your support. Let's go. Ready to swear.